I think the lads last weekend knew the size of the task going away to France, who were absolutely, um, you know, the Rugby World Cup was such a kick in the teeth for them. I think their head coach has come out and said that they will be scarred for life. Before that, the first game in the Six Nations against Ireland, and I think mentally, if their head coach is in that position, then surely that's rubbing off on a number of their players. And without a bit of leadership in the dressing room, the likes of Anthony Gelange, Anton Dupont, and a couple of other guys who have been out injured, it feels like they aren't in the same frame of mind as they were for a Rugby World Cup when they were in camp. Excuse me, in camp for maybe 10 weeks. They're all fit. They're all on the same page, and then of course they get scattered across their clubs for that extended period of time between the Rugby World Cup and Six Nations, and then all of a sudden everybody just thinks that they're going to pick up from where they left off in that quarter final, and that certainly hasn't been the case. Where in contrast, Ireland, that has been the case. They have found their form very, very quickly. They smelled blood really early on in the game against France, and they went after them. They really, really went after them, and they were just relentless in everything that they did. Yes, granted, France were very easy to get in behind. I think the tag burn try more or less summed up the game. Two phases, and they went from the halfway line into their 22. And a couple of phases later, there was the old pod, one out the back, one short, one inside. All the attacking threats, been able to hold defenders, and then Jack Crowley picks the right pass to put Tadhg Beirne through the hole. So, this is an Ireland team that are really chugging along nicely. They're really well coached. We know that. They look fit. They look fresh. They don't have too many injury concerns. And, France are really going to have to up their game going away from home against Scotland this weekend. But the takeaways from last week were that Ireland have found their groove very quickly, and France seem like their mentality and mindset just isn't quite there. And lastly, just on France, the things that the uncoachables is effort, energy, work rate, getting your backside up off the ground into the defensive line, making your one-on-one tackles. Like, that's not the coach's fault. This isn't a one-way transaction here that it's all Fabien Galtier's fault. Yes, maybe the players don't believe in the new coaching setup at this moment in time, because things haven't just quite clicked in the first game. But there is absolutely no excuse for the work rate, and especially small things around the set piece, like Movaka couldn't, if he had a fell out of a boat, he couldn't hit water. Like, he was just so poor when it came to his line out throwing, and that's things that they have to rectify this week if they're going to have a chance against Scotland. So Ireland extremely good, France poor, and it'll be interesting to see how they both kick on in week two. This is what, as a player and as a former player, I've been able to, previously been in this position. The last thing you want is Andy Farrell to knock on your door and say, "Oh, look, we're giving somebody else a run this week, or we'll rest you this week, get a good week's training next week, and then you'll be all, firing and ready to go for week three in the competition." That's the last thing that you want, especially when you're playing well, and especially when you're one of the young guys who's just been given the opportunity. The Calvin Nashes and Joe McCarthy and Jack Crowley, and even Robbie Henshaw playing 13. Like, he played so well that the last thing that these boys want is to take a back seat for a week. So that's why I don't think there will be too many changes in team selection against Italy. We know that they've won 23 out of the last 24 games against them since Italy got into the championship in the year 2000. I think that loss was well over a decade ago in Italy. Italy have never won in Dublin. Ireland have what 16 test matches on the bounce, their longest ever winning run at home. They score an average of 29 points at home to Wales, the points margin of 29 points. They scored 4 tries in 12 of their last 16 home games. So, look at all the stats. Look at the form that Italy have come into off the back of a really disappointing Rugby World Cup, nearly shipping 100 points in one game, and 60 or 70, close to 70 points against France as well. So, they've got their own coaching setup, new coaching setup. They played a lot better against England, but this is an Ireland side that you would expect to get very close to that betting handicap of, I think it's around 32 points on the handicap. So expect a good game because Italy like to throw it around as well. They play a good style, a good brand of rugby. So hopefully both teams come with that attacking mindset. I'm really looking forward, Donny, to seeing how the first 10 minutes of the game is and see how that goes. Will Scotland be almost nervous about what happened in the final and in the second half against Wales? Will they have that cagey approach, or will they go out and express themselves like they did in the first 45 minutes of that Welsh game? That's what I'm interested to see because when doubt starts creeping in, and like Wales should have won that game, they should have won that game. The amount of penalties that Scotland give away, the amount of opportunities that Wales created, even in the first half, and they just couldn't execute. They got themselves into the right position, field position, and just couldn't get any momentum or any multi-phase attack going whatsoever. So how are Scotland going to react? First game at home, they got absolutely battered 2 years ago by France in Murrayfield. I think they conceded 37 points in that game. And, you know, this French team there's got to be a reaction. There has to be a reaction from the players. What they put out in Marseille and the Velodrome just wasn't good enough. And, the Gregor Townsend, the captain of Scotland, Finn Russell, they know that this French side are going to come with a completely different attitude, and they'll be looking to go to Murrayfield and try and beat the Scotland team up, take them on physically, try and dominate them in the collisions, and then hopefully they have a little bit of class to be able to get the job done. But for me, it just feels like Scotland at home with the 45, 50 minutes that they showed last week, that they do have the ability to create opportunities, and they do have match winners like Duhan van der Merwe, who was the leading light last year in the Six Nations. So I'm going to go for a home win. Scotland to win at home, even though France won there a couple of years ago. So we'll get this hole dug even deeper for France, and probably more pressure will come on to Fabien Galtier if they lose 2 games on the bounce. I think England will really go after them up front, and lay that foundation. We know that they kick the ball a hell of a lot. The kick chase is unbelievable. Their line speed and defense at the minute is off the charts. Granted, they do make some silly decisions also. They slipped off a number of tackles last week, the lowest completed tackle percentage in the competition last weekend against Italy, with only 85% of tackles completed. That has to go up another level. And Wales, who we know will be playing with pride and enthusiasm, with all these young guys in their team who want to go out and express themselves. It's not going to be an easy day. I think the points handicap at the minute is 12 points. And that's really, considering I think the weather conditions are going to be tough, freezing cold, maybe sleet and showers coming in also. So it could be a game for the purists with lots of scrums, mauls, and plenty of close quarters rugby. So we'll see how that goes. But I do fancy England to get 2 wins out of 2, to beat Wales. I don't think Wales have won there in the last 5 games that they've played. So yeah, again, all the odds are stacked against them, and Warren Gatland will just be looking for another performance that he can build upon for the next few weeks, and obviously leading forward with the squad that he's picked. There's absolutely no doubt that he's not just tunnel vision about week 2, 3, 4 in the Six Nations. This is about building a squad for the future. So a bit like Steve Borthwick also, but we've got to go with the home win and be thereabouts in the points handicap at 12.